Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, where we talk about pharmacy topics and careers. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. This is episode 361, and you can find the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Now, in the pharmacy world, it is very common for a patient to pick up a prescription, leave the pharmacy with it, and then disappear until they need our services again, right? Ideally, they will take their medication as prescribed. They'll take the last pill, the bottle's empty, they throw it in the trash, right? But it's also possible that some or all of that medication will need to be discarded someday. If you don't want your patients to put their unwanted medications into their household trash, you need to give them some alternatives at the time of pickup. In other words, begin with the end in mind. I have two ideas for you. One is passive, and the other is direct. If you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know I'm a very direct and straightforward person. So you might think that my favorite approach is the direct approach. It is not. The first one we're going to talk about is passive, and that is my favorite. You know how patients sometimes wait in line at the pharmacy counter? There might be, two, three, four, five, maybe more patients waiting at the pharmacy counter. My idea here, this is my passive idea, hang a framed 8 by 10 sign near the patient pickup window so patients can look at it while they wait. I would include at least these three things. Number one, the address for at least one local drug take-back box, their hours of operation, and a list of what can and cannot go in the box. Number two, the date, time, and location of the next drug take-back event as soon as you know about it. And along with that, I would list the items that are accepted. And then number three, I would include a QR code or a website linking to the FDA's flush list. It's called the FDA flush list. And I would, of course, include some information for context. I don't want people to automatically think that it's okay to flush medications. If you haven't heard of the FDA flush list, here's a little context for you as you're listening to this today. According to the CDC's website, medications on the flush list are those, number one, that are sought after for their use and or abuse potential, and number two, that can result in death from one dose if inappropriately taken. If children, adults, or pets in your home accidentally or intentionally ingest, touch, misuse, or abuse a medication on the flush list, they can suffer serious consequences, including death. And that ends the excerpt from the CDC's website. If your patient can't make it to their local drug take-back box or a drug take-back day, reassure them that it's acceptable to flush medications listed on the FDA's flush list. As a bonus, you could include information about best practices for disposing of medications in household trash, participating in mail in programs, and using drug deactivation pouches. I think doTERRA is the one that I'm most familiar with. I think I gave you six ideas instead of just three. All of those are fair game for this framed 8 by 10 sign that I'm recommending you put near the patient pickup window so patients can look at it while they wait. I'm just going to pause for a second here and acknowledge that you are probably a very, very busy pharmacist and you may not have time for this. So let me just suggest that creating drug disposal education materials could be a very good student project or a technician project. I get how people can get busy, but no matter what, if you think this is a good idea, find a way to make it happen. Your tech, your student, or even you can pick out the size of the sign if an 8 by 10 seems too small. Or if you want, you could even riff off of this and make a half sheet handout for your prescription bags instead. This is great information. These are good ideas I'm just trying to share. Now, let's move on to the second way that I recommend providing drug disposal information, which is a direct call to action. If you know me at all, if you've listened to this podcast, you know that I'm a very straightforward and direct person. So while you would think this would be my favorite way to approach Drug disposal education, again, the passive is actually my favorite. People don't like being told what to do, and I get that. However, sometimes the line's not very long, somebody doesn't see the sign, or they don't see the handout in the prescription bag. So, this direct call to action is a great approach as well. Pharmacists, we have a duty to counsel. So, this is something you can counsel on. Provide that drug disposal education when you counsel your patient. Your counseling points can just mirror whatever your sign says or your handout. You can talk about those drug take back boxes, drug take back day events, the flush list, household disposal, mail in pouches, deactivation products, and so on. So you can just mirror what you've already got on your passive education materials. Now, please be advised that you will never know everything. I started paying attention to drug disposal probably back in 2017, and I know that I don't know everything either. Over time, you will get drug disposal questions that you just don't have immediate answers to. And please know that that's okay. But be curious and look it up. If nothing else, pharmacists are trained to research things so you can build your expertise over time. That concludes my second idea for providing drug disposal education at the time of prescription pickup. At this time, what I'd like to do is tell you a quick story. It's a story about something that I did for my county's addiction task force. I live in Northwest Ohio. The name of my town is Perrysburg, Ohio, if you want to find that on a map, but it's located within Wood County, Ohio. It's Northwest Ohio. In 2018, I created a list of all of the drug take back boxes in my county, in Wood County, Ohio. Now, at the time, there were 13 boxes, but by the time I updated the list, there were 15. I haven't updated that list in 6 years. It is now 2025 as I record this. It's about to be 2026. We're in December 2025 here. And I know there's at least one more drug take back box now. So it is time for an update. And I'm not telling you this story to impress you. Rather, I want to share good ideas. Good ideas are meant to be shared, and you can absolutely do this too. And it will benefit your community for years. You might be wondering, why would anyone make a drug take back box list for their county? Here's why. I volunteered to do it. I was helping with the Wood County Addiction Task Force at the time, Wood County, Ohio, and I saw a gap and I filled it. At prevention events, there were resource tables, right? We had suicide prevention events, there were drug abuse prevention events, there was all kinds of stuff. But among all these resource tables, nobody had a county-wide drug take-back list. Nobody even had one for the city in which the addiction task force usually had their events, which was Bowling Green, Ohio, about, I would say, 20 minutes south of where I live, which is Perrysburg, Ohio. Since the resource I would want to see most was not there, I just created it. Necessity's the mother of invention, right? If the solution you need is not there, you do it yourself. To this day, the county's ADAMAS board, that's the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board, still hosts my county-wide drug take back box list on their website. And to my knowledge, they still distribute it at events. Now, as a pharmacist, creating a countywide drug take back box list was completely on point. If your county's ADAMAS board or addiction task force needs one, I highly recommend that you or a student step up. It will be appreciated. So create the list, it will be appreciated. And you can use the information at your own practice site as well. This is a shorter episode, so before I wrap this one up, I would like to end with some motivation. If you need reasons to add drug disposal education at prescription pickup or to create a drug take back box list, here are 7 benefits of proper medication disposal. Number 1, proper disposal supports community safety and public health. Number 2, It prevents medication theft and diversion. Medications are often stolen from homes, sometimes even during open houses. You've got an open house on a Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m., and people don't realize how vulnerable their medicine cabinets can be during those open houses. Number three, proper medication disposal prevents misuse and abuse. The person diverting medications is not always the person using them. They might be selling them or giving them to someone else. Number four, proper disposal prevents medication errors, especially when medications have similar names, appearances, and packaging. Number five, proper medication disposal prevents accidental poisonings and overdoses, which ultimately saves lives. Medications like fentanyl patches are effective for patients who need them, of course, but they're extremely dangerous to children and pets, and they must be disposed of promptly when no longer needed. They need to be stored properly while they're being used, of course, but once the patient is done using them, get them out of the house. Accidental poisonings and overdoses may result. Number six, proper disposal protects the environment. Drug disposal boxes and take back events are preferred. They keep medications out of the groundwater, they keep it out of the landfills, etc. But again, for certain high risk medications, the FDA does recommend flushing. You will find a link to the FDA's flush list in the show notes today. You'll find the show notes on the pharmacistvoice.com. Select episode 361. And then number seven, proper disposal is anonymous and judgment free. Drug disposal boxes and take back events allow people to drop off medications with no questions asked, which reduces hoarding, uncertainty, and shame. And that wraps up my list of 7 benefits of disposing of medications properly. If you are a pharmacist listening to this, I know I'm preaching to the choir. We all know that safe storage and disposal are important, but we're all busy, and the devil is in the details. I hope this episode gave you some practical ideas that you can actually use. Passive and direct drug disposal education at prescription pickup, creating a drug take back box list for your county, and reinforcing why proper storage and disposal matter. Take whatever works for you and implement that at your practice site in 2026 and beyond. Thank you very much for listening to episode 361 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. The show notes are on thepharmacistvoice.com. In the show notes, you'll find links to the DEA Drug Take Back Program, the FDA's Flush List, my county's Take Back Box list, which is on the Wood County Adamus Board's website, and more. There's always lots of links in my show notes. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you know a pharmacist, student, or tech who needs to hear this episode, please share it with them. And if you like this show, come on back. We've got weekly episodes until the end of January. Then we're switching to a monthly format. You can subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks so much for listening today, and I'll talk to you next week. Happy holidays.